Hello, my name is Nils. I'm a partner here at Chadwick Lawrence and I'm one of the solicitors in our regulatory team. The government, as you are all no doubt aware, invoked step 4 of its roadmap out of COVID-19 restrictions, and part of that roadmap was dropping the requirement for individuals to work from home if they could do so. As a result of this, over the last week or so, we have had a large number of inquiries about the data protection implications of people going from working from home back into the office, or working from home and going into a hybrid working arrangement whereby people work from home some of the time and some of the time in the office. I actually read an article earlier this week by a very prominent cybersecurity expert who said that the return to the office is a perfect storm of data protection issues. So it's very important that when you're considering letting your employees back into the office, that you're not only looking at the safety measures to keep people secure from catching COVID, but also looking at other issues such as data protection issues to ensure that you're not caught out by any potential hiccups that could arise. The first area that I think businesses need to focus on is the hybrid working arrangement that many of us will take forward out of this pandemic. It's highly likely that businesses are likely to be more flexible going forwards, and that a great many of us will be working from home some of the time and also working from the office some of the time. This does bring with it its own data protection challenges. However, the first is that it's important your IT systems are such that an individual logging onto your systems is as secure at home as they are in the workplace. It's also really important that you ensure that people are only logging on to the devices and working on the devices that you give them, as opposed to their own personal devices. If you do allow your employees to do work off their own devices, such as their smartphones or tablets, it's important you've got a policy that reflects the security measures that your employees will need to put in place on their own devices to keep workplace data secure. It's important that you've got a really clear data protection policy on what will need to happen if an individual is working from home. For instance, although throughout the pandemic many of us have cut down on our paper use, are you going to allow people to take what might be quite sensitive documents, both pertaining to your business and also potentially to your client's business, home? If that's the case, then what security measures are individuals going to have to put in place to ensure that these documents are safe when they are taken out of the office and to home? So it's very important that you look at both your IT and structural security to ensure you're not caught out by any data protection breaches, which could be potentially reported to the ICO. It's then also very important that you look at the COVID measures that you're going to be taking when people return to the office, and whether these have data protection implications. The most obvious ones are: will you require your employees to take tests in order to come into the office? And if you do so, what will you be doing with this data? And even, do you need to keep this data? And also, in relation to vaccine status, will you require your employees to let you know whether they are or are not vaccinated? There is a myriad of issues that both of these topics bring up. It's important that you make sure that the data that you have in relation to testing and vaccine status is necessary. It's not simply enough to want this data and not use it for any particular purpose. It's also important that if you are going to keep this data, that you have a lawful basis for doing so, and that you only keep the minimum level of data that is required by law. It's also vitally important that people are aware that this data is going to be collected and why you are collecting it. So, for instance, it may be that you're going to conduct testing on a weekly basis to ensure, as far as possible, that your site is COVID secure. It's important that you outline the reasons to your employees as to why this testing is necessary, what data you will be keeping, where it will be kept, who has access to it, and for how long you will be keeping it for. We would suggest this is done in the format of a data protection impact assessment, and the same applies to vaccines, and in particular whether someone has or has not had a vaccine and is double jabbed. If you are going to keep this data, again, it's important you outline why you are requiring this data, for what purpose it will be used, and how it's going to keep people safe going forward. Our view is that although these pieces of information on testing and whether someone is positive or negative and whether someone is double jabbed or not is classed as sensitive personal data, it is possible to keep this data perfectly lawfully, but you've got to make sure that you put in place the right steps. That's just a quick whirlwind tour of 2 or 3 potential data protection issues that could arise from people returning to the office. I hope you found this useful, and if you do have any questions, please do contact us. Thank you.